I've drawn my letters and I have scanned them, and then I've taken the scan into Photoshop and increased the contrast. I then place the image in Illustrator where I'm going to trace it to vectorize the letters. With the image selected, I'll come and click on Image Trace on my Tool Options bar. We can also find Image Trace under the Window menu. I also want to have a look at the Image Trace panel because there's one option that I need to change. If I twirl open the Advanced Settings, it's this one. I want to ignore white so that the negative shapes, the white shapes, are not traced as solid. Depending on the nature of your scan, you may also want to adjust the threshold slider, but since I've already prepared this in Photoshop, I really don't need to make any adjustments here, and the number of paths, but I'm going to leave this where it is. Now to expand my tracing result, I'll come and click on the expand button. At top left, it tells me that I have a group. Ultimately, I want each of my letters to be its own compound path. So I'm going to need to come and ungroup that. I still have a group, so I need to ungroup it a second time until we see that I have mixed objects. Now I should be able to select each letter as its own separate path. Let's turn on the rulers if they're not already on, Command or Control R, and I'm going to zoom in to my top line, drag down a guide. This will function as my baseline, and I deliberately want the rounded ends of the letters to slightly overshoot that baseline. And let's have another guide for the cap height. Now with these guides, so that FontSelf is aware of my intent, I'm actually going to name them. I'll come to the Layers panel, and let's just first of all make sure that they are unlocked. I'll select the first one, or the top one, and this is going to be called cap height. It needs to be spelt this way, lowercase c, uppercase h, no space between. And then this one will be baseline. I might now want to make some modifications to the letters. For example, my C, I was aware at the time that I drew it that that wasn't a very good first attempt, so I made an alternate down here. Let's get this one, and we'll use this one instead. Now, in addition, I might want to scale some of the characters. Thankfully, when creating a hand-drawn font like this, it's very forgiving. There are no wrong answers. It's just a matter of how much character you want to introduce into it. But I do want the characters to be at the same scale. So for example, in the case of the F, I might want to come to my direct selection tool and select the bottom of that stem and bring that down. Now as I'm doing that, I realize that I'm selecting the guide. So let me come and just lock my guides, and then I'll just nudge that stem down ever so slightly. The same with the H. So when I've made whatever modifications I deem necessary, the next thing I need to do is arrange my letters in two rows in this case. One row for the A through Z, and another for my numerals beginning with 0, and I have just a very basic set of punctuation. When everything is set up like this, we're ready to convert these vector shapes into a working font.